is Gopi Bharatur Padakamalayora Das 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 Anudas. To make this the standard which we're striving for. To make this the standard of our lives on a day-to-day level. And that is to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, the Anu, the smallest of all servants of that all-beautiful Lord of the Gopis, Gopinath. Because it is in that spirit that Krishna reveals his infinite beauty and sweetness, where we could actually feel the rays of Krishna's infinite love upon us. And just like that little tree, when it feels the rays of the sun, it grows. If you go to our little Vrindavan forest behind our temple in Chopati, in Mumbai there's all these big buildings everywhere, so there's a lot of blocking of sun. You'll see that some of our trees, they're growing, instead of this way, they're growing this way and this way, trying to be in the sun. What's really happening, this is truth, this is not an analogy. The light of the sun, the tree is actually reciprocating with the light of the sun by growing in the direction of the sun. And similarly, when we are exposed to the light of Krishna's love, our own love grows in the direction of that light. And that is what we are here for, to help each other to remain in the light of that grace, and to try to help all of our brothers and sisters of all species of life throughout the whole world to feel the nourishing light of that grace. Srila Prabhupada traveled all around the world giving that grace. We heard from Guru Das Prabhu and Shyam Sundar Prabhu what it did in their lives and how it empowered them. In San Francisco, in London, in India, it was Shyam Sundar, no need to talk about what he did before he met Srila Prabhupada and Guru Das Prabhu, because those things are just not important. What's important is the transformation that happened. They felt the light of Krishna's grace shining through Srila Prabhupada's every word, his every action, his every prayer. And they grew. And they reached hundreds of people in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco, which was really a desperate place. And they went to London, a place, it is said, when the British had control over most of the world, the saying was, the sun never sets in the British Empire. But now all they have left is a little island, and it's almost always cloudy. So the sun hardly ever rises in the British Empire. I think this idea of good morning, because sunny mornings in England are very rare, so it's a really serious thing, good morning. But they went there and Srila Prabhupada's sun just shined through them. Because it shined and they were growing with that light, and the light was coming from them, and soon they were living with the Beatles, and they were making record albums, and they were on television, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people, and there was temples, and then there was mansions. They had nothing. Nothing except that light. They had no money. They had no training. They just had that light. And then they came to India. And they decided, let's do something big for Srila Prabhupada. They had no money. They only knew a few people. Let's do a program to attract tens and thousands of people to hear Srila Prabhupada speak. And they had that, how they did it, they don't know how they did it. They had a pandal bigger than this. There may be 7,000 or 8,000 people today, but there was about 20,000 people. And they had nothing to do it with. And it was right here, in this park where we sit, Cross Maidan. And I was just coming out of a dark cave in the Himalayas. And I happened to see the brilliance. Shamsundar Prabhu, Gurudas, it was their idea to put that hoarding, that billboard, saying Hare Krishna Festival. If it wasn't for that billboard, I don't know where I would be today. We don't know, when we're serving, we don't know what the effect is going to be of anything we do. I was just coming out of a Buddhist meditation course, and I was walking, minding my own business. To this day, I really like to mind my own business. But nobody lets me do it. So what to do? If I can serve, it's my good fortune. And I was walking down the street and I saw this big sign, a spiritual festival. I asked somebody, where is this Cross Maidan? They said, it's just over a few blocks. So I came and there was this giant tent. And I remember, because earlier this year our beloved God sister Yamuna Devi, Srila Prabhupada took her into his loving embrace in the spiritual world. But that was one of the first experiences I had of Krishna consciousness. There was only a few people in the pandal during the day, and she was for hours sitting on the stage all alone, playing a harmonium, singing. Hours with her eyes closed, just singing, like an angel, sometimes with tears in her eyes. There was nobody for her to sing to except Krishna, to please her guru. And as people started coming, she was just sharing that love she received, sharing that light of the sun of Krishna coming through Prabhupada with people all around. It deeply moved my heart. I didn't know what bhakti was. I didn't know the philosophy of it. I hardly even heard the word. But I was deeply moved by it. By the light coming from her heart through her song. And as the hours passed, about 20,000 people gathered. And I was way in the back. It was here, 41 and a half years ago. That billboard was Shamsundar Prabhu's idea to put it there. Somehow or other, it attracted me there. And then Srila Prabhupada spoke something to Guru Das Prabhu, and he came all the way to the back and literally grabbed me by the hand and said, Prabhupada wants you to sit with him. And I said, how does Prabhupada know me? He didn't answer my question. He just pulled me. And being as pullable as I am, I followed him. And Srila Prabhupada, there was a kirtan going. He didn't say anything, but he welcomed me with folded palms. And then with his hand, he offered me to sit just close to him. I didn't know who he was, but I felt his love. I felt his compassion. I felt his care. And my heart opened so wide to hear what he spoke. And everything just made so much sense. It seemed to answer all my questions. I stayed with him for about 2 weeks. But still, I was not convinced. My heart was convinced, but my mind and intelligence had so many other questions and aspirations. So I left to go back to the Himalayas, where I met so many sages and rishis and yogis. And then to get my visa extended, I went to Patna and then to Nepal. And it was in Nepal, in that rice paddy, that I walked for about 20 minutes under an umbrella with the only other person within miles around during a monsoon rainstorm. And when the rain stopped, I said, "Thank you." And he turned around. It was my lifelong best friend, Gary. I said, "Gary, I will teach you how to be a sadhu." So he said, "Yes, I will become a sadhu." And we jumped through that third-class train and we went to Patna, we went to Varanasi, and then there was that big flood, and the train was standing still for about 20 hours, and then it moved, and we were thirsty, and we were hungry, and we wanted to move because we were crying. We couldn't sit down in about 40 hours, and finally we crawled out a window. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. The train left us. We were in Mathura on Janmashtami. I was on my way to Amarnath in the Himalayas to worship Shiva. I told Gary I would meet him at Haridwar in 3 days. But on the third day, I got typhoid fever on the bank of Yamuna, so I couldn't leave. Vrindavan. Actually, Srila Prabhupada planted that seed in my heart, and I didn't even know what was happening. But because Prabhupada, he showed love, he showed care for me. It was Krishna that created that monsoon storm. It was Krishna that gave me typhoid fever. It was Krishna that wouldn't let me leave Vrindavan. And it was Krishna who completely charmed my heart in Vrindavan, so I never wanted to leave it. It was all Srila Prabhupada's compassion. He planted the seed. He offered his love. And I was trapped. And I was so happy. And then he came back. And with him, Guru Das Prabhu, Shamsundar Prabhu, Yamuna Devi. And then I could understand what Srila Prabhupada was, what was his compassion, what was his love. And through understanding Prabhupada, I could really understand, to whatever little extent I'm able, what is the beauty of Krishna? What is the beauty of the path of bhakti, the path of unconditional love? While I was in Vrindavan, I got a letter from my younger brother, Larry, who told me how I was totally breaking the heart of my mother and father by being away for so long in these strange, dangerous places. I didn't want to hurt them. But I believed in the very deepest core of my heart that if I do not have selfish motives, if I honestly, earnestly am trying to love Krishna and serve Krishna through my beloved Guru, then Krishna will compensate. And today it's like another one of those closing of the circles. Gary, my father's name is Jerry. I've never called him that name because I always call him Father. So I'm not calling him, I'm just talking to him, talking about him to you. So today we have Gary, Larry, and Jerry. And Shamsundar and Guru Das. All people, as Gary said, he was the one who got me on this journey. He convinced me, let's go. So they were all, these people who have assembled today were so intimately a part of my coming to Srila Prabhupada's loving service. And by his grace, he's giving me this most precious of all treasures in the opportunity to try to honestly, earnestly give my very life for each and every one of you. I'm a very small person, and sometimes when there's big numbers of people, it's hard to personally reciprocate on a physical level. But please know in my heart of hearts, whatever you do for the service of Prabhupada and Krishna, I am so indebted, I am so grateful. I am your servant. I am yours. Because that is my only hope of staying under the light of Srila Prabhupada's divine grace. In this spirit, I thank you. Let us remain very determined and serious to perform our sadhana. Let us cultivate deep enthusiasm for devotional service to the Vaishnavas, to the deity, and to all living beings. And let us shower the whole world with that grace through our chanting of the holy names. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. So let us offer our sincerest, deepest gratitude to His Holiness Radhanath-Swami Maharaj, who is, like Narsimanand Prabhu said, it's so uncomfortable for him by his nature to sit here.